As long as grown men are more active in watching sports than getting politically involved, this is not going to change. A real quick story. I was getting my hair cut this morning, sitting in the barber shop. Two men were in there. All they could talk about was sports. So the barber asked them about the kids on the border, and they had no idea what this man was talking about, because all they wanted to do was talk sports.
And that's the problem here, folks. People just want to talk about sports, or so it would seem. But talking about mindless fluff is really a strategy in disguise. It's other people controlling the conversation, because he who controls the conversation controls your perception of the situation. So mindless dribble, like sports, is in fact like watching Evil on ESPN dribbling the ball, going for the score. It's their MO. It's politics 101. Always deny, never admit, and make counter accusations whenever possible, because the best way to deflect attention away from an important issue is by not talking about the issue. If they control the conversation, they control the ball, they score, to use a sports analogy. So see past their deflector shields. Anytime people bring up meaningless topics in response to an important topic, they're evading the issue. It's like pointing in one direction and then running in the other. Look there, see ya. So this is one big smokescreen. It's a smokescreen in the sky and a smokescreen to deny. This is their strategy. And this is how they control the dribble on the court. Again, he who controls the conversation controls the ball, and you can't score in the game if you don't have the ball. So by allowing evil people to control the conversation with mindless fluff, cheap insults, cliche expressions, you are allowing them the opportunity to score points by wasting your time and by having you think about something else other than the topic at hand. They want to degenerate the conversation, to filibuster the debate. Don't walk into their trap. See their game for what it is, for evil is as evil does. Pollution, GMOs, fracking, transhumanism, it's all related. Evil does not want you to talk about the moral high ground of the situation. It wants to talk about sports and television and what's on sale. This is about good and evil, and evil is as evil does. And so if you deviate from their fluff-minded rhetoric, they'll insult you as a means of self-preservation. You're conspiring against evil, they'll say. You're not being trendy enough, they'll say. Forget MTV, ESPN, the sports network. What a joke. And this whole situation is so ironic, to keep you in the dark, away from the light, to transform you into a victim of their disease, to terraform this planet into something sinister and unnatural. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your sky, to your chemically induced synthetic sky. There are many terms for what we are seeing here, but Wikipedia probably puts it best by calling this global dimming, a process of reducing the amount of light that reaches the Earth's surface, an evildoer's symbolic wet dream, you might say, keeping the light out, that is. And you don't have to be a super brain to know what's going on here. Just look up. The skies have dramatically changed over the past 2 decades. It almost looks like something out of the movie Matrix when they scorched the sky. There is an obvious problem here, folks, with our environment, and the mainstream propaganda ministry will have you believe that this is absolutely normal, that there is nothing to fear. Go back to shopping. Go back to Doomsday Disneyland. If you listen to the quote-unquote experts, they seem to be saying that treating our air like an open sewer is no big deal, because pollution just magically drifts off into space or something. But this couldn't be any further from the truth. The problem with the air has become so bad it's worse than our water supply. The water we drink is recycled. It goes from crap water to tap water in a matter of minutes. Literally, it gets filtered, but we drink it anyways. And our air is so much worse. And nobody's filtering the air we breathe. It's just pure garbage, straight from the industry and right into the population. And if anybody doubts the health benefits of pollution, then I would invite you to go suck on some exhaust and see how that goes for you. To make matters worse, they're now adding a layer of pollution in the form of clouds to cast an extra shadow because it's just getting too hot in here. People have no idea what's in the air, just like they have no idea what's in the water. From fluoride to residual pharmaceutical products. If you're drinking tap water, you're drinking recycled wastewater. Stop it. Soda is even worse. Pepsi is Soylent Green plus a bunch of chemicals. It's crazy, y'all. But this is just another example of what happens when you don't use your noggin, my friends. Pollution. It's out there. It's everywhere. It's what we get for not asking enough questions. Yet it's not entirely our fault. They got us so distracted with scandals and war and tragedies that we're not seeing the bigger picture. We got tickets to the circus, but we ain't seeing the show. We're using the technology without considering the side effects. Because if we had to clean our own water, we certainly wouldn't crap in it. Anyways, I got a little sidetracked. We're talking about the skies and the way they are today. As temperatures keep rising, synthetic clouds are the response. Petrochemical companies have deployed them without our consent, much like the way the food industry has deployed GMOs without our consent. We got a load of scientific white papers to cover that are so unbelievable, they're true. Life is stranger than fiction, my friends, and we're here to prove it. The first study we're going to look at is called Geoengineering the Climate, put out by the Royal Society. They start their sales pitch by asking, what can we do to mitigate global warming since emissions are running out of control and exceeding every projected scenario? They say that there are two main methods of climate management, CO2 removal and solar radiation management. Either remove CO2 or mask the effect, basically. They go on to say that carbon removal is preferable since it addresses the problem, but says that this is very slow. Then they talk about methods such as ambient air capture and ocean fertilization, fertilizing algae, that is, to make forests in the ocean for carbon consumption. Yet we know the dangers of that since algae tends to be toxic in high concentrations, as we saw in the Toledo water scare, where people in Toledo and surrounding areas couldn't even drink their water anymore, and it got so bad that they couldn't find any water at the supermarket either. Scary stuff, folks. Moving on to the solar radiation management techniques, or SRM as they call it, i.e. chemtrails. They say that this is useful in an emergency situation and that it may help us avoid going past the tipping point. Other studies that we'll cover in this broadcast reveal that this tipping point is actually an extinction level event. SRM techniques highlighted in the Royal Society paper includes painting buildings white, making clouds brighter by spraying seawater into the air, and last but not least, stratospheric aerosols. And notice the USGS stamp of approval on this slide. This study closes their sales pitch by saying stratospheric aerosols are the most effective and the most affordable method available when compared to other options, and it stipulates the need to work on public and political reactions to climate intervention technologies. Amazing. The next study we're going to look at is probably the most widely referenced white paper on the subject in the scientific community. It is called An Overview of Geoengineering of Climate Using Stratospheric Sulfate Aerosols, also known as the Rash and All paper, if I'm pronouncing that name right. This study highlights the need for stratospheric injections and highlights two delivery methods on page 8. First method is the insertion of a primary aerosol such as fine sulfate particles using an injector mounted on an aircraft platform cruising in the lower stratosphere. And the second method is using sulfur spike fuel additives employed to emit aerosol precursors in a jet engine exhaust stream. It's exactly what we're looking at. In each case, injection is assumed to occur with the initial plumes distributed throughout regions to avoid hot spots and to maintain the engineered layer. The next white paper on deck is something that can be found on Harvard's online archive system. The paper is entitled Stratospheric Injection of Reflective Aerosols or Particles by Means of Aviation Fuel Additive, written by John Gorman. Let me read you the abstract of this paper. Various suggestions have been made for stratospheric aerosols or particles to simulate the observed cooling effect of major volcanic eruptions. This paper describes the selection and preliminary testing of chemicals that might be used as aviation fuel additives to distribute two products, sulfur dioxide and micron-sized silica particles, from a high-flying commercial or military aircraft. The two chemicals tested are dimethyl sulfide to produce sulfur dioxide and tetraethyl silicate to produce silica particles. In a closed glass jar, both of these chemicals are indistinguishable from jet aviation fuel. Both are clear, colorless, and oily liquids. Both dissolve in aviation fuel in any proportion. Solutions of each of these chemicals have been burned in a paraffin blow lamp as a simple simulation of a jet engine combustion chamber. Observation of the combustion suggests that the desired chemicals are produced and that the silica particles are of smoke or mist quality. It is suggested that the solution would probably have no detrimental effects on the fuel tanks, pipes, pumps, or combustion chambers of the jet engine. This paper includes general facts about jet engines, aviation fuel, aircraft fuel systems, and flight plans. Well, to say the least, I found Mr. Gorman's work so interesting that I decided to go look for more. And by doing so, I stumbled upon a series of publications on the matter entitled Geoengineering Case Study, a memoranda of evidence by the Innovation, Universities, and Skills Committee. This memoranda of evidence includes not only some of Mr. Gorman's works, but the works of many others in the scientific community as well, with shocking statements and revelations such as large amounts of methane are stored in permafrost and even larger amounts in the seabed below. The release of either could be regarded as an extreme side effect of warmer seas and has been linked to the Permian extinction. I could almost read that again, but what it says there is that industry has pushed humanity to the brink of extinction, to an extinction level event like the movie 2012. How can we possibly allow this to continue? Everyone should be out on the streets protesting, demanding immediate change to the way industry is conducting its business. If they were putting out Pintos again that exploded on impact, people would be demanding justice. But here industry has clearly trashed the planet and put the entire species at risk, and nobody says anything. Let's go watch the game. Stupidity will be our undoing unless we react strongly and boldly now. I still have so much more to cover on this topic, but that's going to have to be rolled into a part 2 in this series. In the meantime, this cause should be one of your highest priorities. Greedy corporations are destroying our planet, and not a single person is being held accountable. This is beyond criminal. It's genocidal, it's suicidal, and every other issue is a distraction compared to this one.